Did you know that people can actually go through divorces and agree on every single thing?
Really? Well, y'all better stay tuned and find out a great story of that actually happening.
Ladies-in-law, 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 ladies-in-law.
Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in.
Make sure you like our video and subscribe to the Ladies-in-Law.
Yeah, you know that little heart and thumbs up at the bottom of your screen? Click it before you do anything else.
Right, because legal news like this is too hot to miss, and we're bringing it to you every Thursday at 3 p.m. I'm Ricky.
And I'm Shay.
And we're the Ladies-in-Law.
Where we're ripping and shaking up all the legal information you know, need to know, and want to know.
From the tabloids to the courthouse to your own home.
So when anyone, including us as family law attorneys, think about divorce, we think about a lot of fighting, misery, and it being really drawn out. Not fun. Well, we actually have an amazing guest coming on the show today who's going to discuss his very unique experience with his divorce and actually shed a positive light on the divorce process.
Yes, so we have Will Stiverson. He owns his own company. It's called Stiverson Solutions, and he basically helps find money for companies. He helped us. So you guys have to check him out. Will's also very active in his community in Fenton, Michigan. And as Amina stated, he's really here to shed a positive light on going through a divorce process and coming out of it.
Yeah.
Will, it is so nice to have you. Thank you for joining us on Ladies-in-Law.
Thank you so much.
Well, thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So let's start by talking about what the divorce process was like for you and when did you go through that?
So my ex-wife and I, we knew we were done, and then it was just a matter of we didn't have a lot of money to spend with attorneys, and I had a friend that had worked for a law firm for 30 years that drafted up paperwork. We were in complete agreement with everything before we filed, which was huge.
Rare. Wow.
And
rare.
So I just wanted it to be done, and I wanted my son half the time.
Okay, so you had a young son. How
Yeah.
old was he at the divorce?
4. And
okay.
Our divorce was final the day before his 5th birthday.
Oh goodness, I'll never forget that day.
No.
Huh?
No, it's actually the day he was due too. So,
Yeah. It is very important for you.
Yeah.
yeah. So anyway, it was just a matter of I wanted him half the time. I wanted joint legal physical custody. We were like buried in debt. It was right after the financial crisis. Our incomes had dropped substantially. So as far as like getting rid of things in the house, we had bought my aunt and uncle's old house. And so like any of the contents that we bought in the house were mine. So it was pretty much anything that we got together as a marriage, I just gave to her. Anything her family gave to us, she took. Anything my family gave to us, I took. And like I said, there wasn't really much to it. She claims him every year. We were like so done with each other, and we were so toxic. Like my friend said, man, you guys don't like just fight like normal people. You just go right to nuclear war.
Well, I find that so interesting that we were able to come to certain terms about a divorce, about a child, about your property, and you saying you were struggling. Well, you'd think most people would be more like clingy to their personal property and things like that. How were you able to kind of have those conversations and get to a mutual agreement?
So it really just came down to I didn't think it was in the best interest of my son Logan, and I don't think that she really wanted to go toe to toe either. And I knew that if she just gave me him half the time, that's all I wanted. I mean, if she was good with that, I was okay with all of the rest of it. And to be honest, really, it does kind of take one to surrender. And everybody's so prideful with divorce. Like I'm gonna stick it to you. I'm gonna fight. I'm gonna stand my ground. You're not gonna get the best of me anymore. And all that. Getting the best was having my son half the time.
And you know, I really appreciate that. I handle most of our divorce cases, and in it, sometimes I have to say to clients, like, you gotta back down on that one, because the overarching desires that you have to have met are going to get slaughtered by this tiny little
Yeah,
thing.
like they stick on one little point, and it's like, are you seriously gonna hold up this entire case over this one little issue?
And I think that's why most divorces end up being absolute misery.
They fight over everything. I mean, some people are literally fighting over who keeps the china. Like, are you serious?
To say that I've actually been divorced, I was married at a very young age. I was 21. My ex-husband and I, it was similar to yours. We didn't have a child, but ended on really good terms. And I remember something my dad said very specific to me. He said, Amina, you are not going to fight over pots and pans. And I remember thinking to myself, because as I'm going through, like, I love that KitchenAid mixer. These things that I've used once or twice in the entire marriage. I love it though. I want it. Why would he need it? Why would he want it? And my dad said, you are not going to fight over pots and pans. And was that something that kind of you really thought about, like, in that kind of concept? Because it really resonated with me.
I had to accept. My ex-wife came from a divorced, broken home, and we both didn't want that. So the fact that we had to throw in the towel was devastating to both of us. And, you know, I had heard, my best friend had told me this at the time, you know, every time that you fight with your spouse, especially in front of your kids, it's like your kids are half of that person.
Yeah.
So if you really love your kids, you know, you can't attack their mother or father because you're essentially attacking them. And so the reality of it is, we did try. We were extremely young. We were two very different people. And we just didn't want our son to suffer anymore.
And I like that. I think that's very honorable of both of you to put your son at the forefront of everything, because most people don't. In our experience, people actually use the children as pawns, and it ultimately ends up hurting the children in the long run.
Anyway, I don't think that a lot of parents consider like the legacy costs of their children, of if they see their parents fighting all the time, divorced, and
that impacts the child.
Yeah, and then they think that that's how it's supposed to be, and maybe they already, like, for example, the damage that time will tell, but you know, Logan might think that it's okay to get a divorce now because his parents got a divorce.
Oh, and it was even made friendly from it.
Yeah.
That's interesting. That's a point of view.
But if he grew up in a household where you guys were fighting, he may think that it's normal for people to fight. So it's kind of like a double-edged sword.
And we were able to stop that. And so I hate divorce personally, even though I've earned the T-shirt. I didn't earn it.
It's okay. Welcome to the club.
It's not because I
Anyway, so let's put a little legal spin on this. So, Will, I think it's wonderful that you guys were able to come to an agreement, put your son at the forefront of everything, and that you didn't need attorneys, even though we're attorneys and we can pay for this. I think it's great.
But if you can do it without attorneys,
people can come to agreements on their own terms. As far as that goes, if the judge will enter the agreement that the parties enter into, as long as it's reasonable. If the judge finds like, okay, you know, you guys were able to work this out, this is wonderful. Courts love when people are able to cooperate without having to get courts involved. Judges hate dealing with petty little issues in family law, and they will just kick it down the line and be like, okay, y'all need to do this. You do not want me involved. So I think that's wonderful. And moving forward, if the parties decide, okay, we want to deviate from this agreement that the judge entered, it's fine. You guys are free to come to your own agreements and do what works for you.
And have you had to do that? Have you had to have some changes?
Actually, I don't even remember what the actual in paper schedule was.
And even very highly contentious divorces, they'll come to me later because there's some issue probably with the child, and they'll hire us, and I'm like, well, what was the original? I'm like, I don't know.
You know, after divorce, there's no like rule book, right, that they give you of like, what do you do with your kids afterwards? And I'll never forget when we were talking when my dad was in the hospital and he was dying with his cancer. Shauna came in to do her like final goodbyes or whatever, and we were walking out with Logan and we were both holding his hand, and he's like 5, so he's just a little guy, and he says, I'm with my family, and then that was like, we both looked at each other and like hurry up, get him in the cart, and like we are just bawling our eyes out, and I said,
that's what people that go through divorce, you don't hear about those moments afterwards.
Yeah, and I just said, we can't put him through that again and confuse him.
No.
And I was dating somebody at the time, and she was dating somebody at the time, and I was thankful and gracious that, you know, he was a big enough man to allow her, you know, to come back to her ex and you know, her ex-father-in-law and all of this stuff. And she later married him. He's an amazing person. He is everything of a husband that she needs that I could never be. He's a wonderful stepdad to my son. In fact, if God forbid something were to happen to me, I know that he'd be taken care of.
Wow, that's amazing.
Well, I think another thing to consider too, you know, people say all the time, parents say, I would do anything for my kids. Now, is that really true? Because when it really comes down to like the little things with your ex, are you gonna, like, as long as your ex isn't doing anything to detrimentally affect your child, like, do you really need to fight over that? And,
No, absolutely not.
and
Absolutely not.
And by the way, Sean and I haven't been perfect. We're good for a good battle royal from time to time. I mean, but the fact of the matter is, though, like, anytime that you have a responsibility, a relationship like that with anybody, like, we fight with our family, right?
Yeah.
It's not like you're safeguarded afterwards of never having to go through any of that again.
So what type of advice would you give for people that are coming out of or contemplating a divorce or recently divorced? What type of advice would you give them to help make the process go smoother or to help heal them?
Yeah.
So I'm a man of faith, so I would say if you're willing to do that, get involved in your faith. I received some advice of don't date anybody for 2 years, and I obviously didn't do that.
Few people actually.
Well, I think the thing is you have this hole, even if it wasn't like a good part in your heart, but this huge hole in your heart that you're trying to fill, right? Whether it's with time or emotion or whatever.
And companionship.
The companionship. And, you know, if you can get strong without it, then do it. I think, you know, a lot of people say counseling's a waste of time. I think it's a waste of time if you are not putting any effort in.
Right.
And a counselor's not going to just fix your problems. I mean, there's no magic button to it. I went to a counselor for almost 2 years, and I looked at her as a coach because I had to deal with everything mentally that happened. You know, all of this life stuff that happened in a short period of time. Just doing that saved like 3 months of time, going in weekly, like an hour a week of doing that. And it was, I learned a lot about myself through all of that. And, you know, one of the things I've mentioned before is, you know, when somebody comes out of a broken relationship, they say, well, I'm trying to find myself and I'm this and this.
Yeah.
And so I don't think it has anything to do with, I think everybody knows who they really are. I think they lose the confidence to be who they really are.
Yeah, thank you so much for
Thank you guys for having
your
me.
insight and a personal perspective. Divorces don't have to be nasty. They're probably going to be contentious in some way, but you can work through it as Will and his ex-wife did and have continued to. And well, we really appreciate seeing someone in our community, our area, that can speak highly of the legal process and having done it on your own. And if you don't feel comfortable doing it on your own, of course, you reach out to Ladies in Law.
We are always here to help.
Always here to help, and we very much support this sort of decision-making and process. So again, thank you, Will.
Well, thank you guys, and I just want you guys, I hope that this helps some of you. I hope that if somebody needs to hear this, that you share this video. And maybe you aren't as lucky as my ex and I were. Maybe you do need attorneys to know your rights, and it's not necessarily to stick it to the other person, but you want to know what's fair and equitable to both of you. So just because I didn't use attorney doesn't mean that you shouldn't. So if you do, you need to get a hold of these two over here, the Ladies in Law. And thank you so much. And again, share if you think this could help somebody out. Please share this, and I hope my story helps your story.
So thanks for watching, and make sure you like and subscribe so that you get all of the hottest legal news every week from the Ladies in Law.
That's another episode of Ladies in Law, not your average lawyers.
Ladies in law, ladies in law, ladies in law, ladies in law.